Welcome to the Vintage Ballers Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Coreno. And on today's episode, we have Coach Jim Osborne joining the show. Jim attended Wittenberg University, where he played college basketball before becoming the head boys basketball coach at Gallipolis High School in Southern Ohio, where he remained for over 4 decades, one of the longest runs in the history of the state of Ohio. So without further ado, please welcome Coach Jim Osborne. What I want to do is, first of all, I want to tell you, thank you for coming on the show, Coach. And this is an honor to have you. I know you coached for, I believe it's 41 years, which is incredible. And I want to get into, I really want to take it back to your childhood, because I believe you grew up in Northern Ohio. So tell everybody where you grew up and when did you fall in love with the game of basketball?
I'm originally from Geneva, Ohio, which is better known for Geneva on the Lake.
Yep.
People in Northeast Ohio, Pennsylvania, that area, in Youngstown, that's where they all came in the summer. So it's like a small Myrtle Beach. It's about 2 miles long, right on Lake Erie. I worked in a penny arcade from 6 in the evening till 3 in the morning when all the bars let out. Made a little money, 90 cents an hour. And I got 10 cents for every hour at the end of the summer that I did. So the guy essentially gave me $1 an hour. So it was all right. But I grew up in, I tell people I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, or the other side of the tracks. There's two, and you would know, being from Westerville, Route 20 goes right through Geneva. And there's a whole set of tracks that go all the way from Pennsylvania, literally into Indiana. And there's 2 sets of those in Geneva. And I was on the one set, and all of a sudden about, maybe 7 or 8, we moved to the other side of the tracks, which was like a new housing development. It's called Nearing Circle. So we went from one side to the other. My dad was an optometrist for close to 50 years, and my mom was a elementary teacher. I had a sister who is now 80, suffering from Alzheimer's in Dallas, Texas. And my other sister is a year younger than I am, and she lives in Buffalo, New York. So the 3 of us were raised unbelievably great. People ask me what my role model is, and as I do for them in my classes, what's your role model? And I couldn't have done any better than my mom and my dad. They were totally supportive of us. Education was very important to both of them. I went to college. Obviously, I went to Wittenberg, and my older sister went to Bowling Green. Younger sister got into air flight attendant for a while, met her husband, and then moving to Buffalo. But the educational process, we had a Muni gym. It was downtown. It was just an old decrepit place, and that's where we started, just playing on Saturdays and whenever we could, and so that sort of started me. And probably not far, a mile or so from our house, was our Little League fields, our Pony League fields. All those were it. And I'm not sure if you can look back on that era, but everybody, our neighbors, all did activities together. If I went to this guy's house, they all were confident we were taking care of at that house. And all of us were involved, in most cases, involved with just about every sport. Some met her at football. I tried football, didn't like that. The shoulder pads and stuff was heavier than I was. And I decided not to play after 8th grade. And I tell a guy that went to Miami, Ohio as a quarterback, that had I not quit playing football after 8th grade, he never would have had that chance, because I was a quarterback. And yeah, he laughed because he was really a lot better. But I got caught in 8th grade. It was a quarterback draw or something, and I was beating everybody. And all of a sudden, the defensive tackle tackled me, and he couldn't run 100 yards, let alone do it very fast. And I decided then the shoes were too heavy, the equipment was too heavy, and I decided not to do that. But the whole community was sports-minded. Friday nights football was very important, and we just everybody played. We'd play if we didn't have a game, we all went to the fields, and we had home run derby, and we pretended we were of course we were all Cleveland Indians fans. And we were Larry Doby, Rocky Colavito. We were all those guys. So that's where it started. And our programs were good in the community as far as activities for kids. And so I just like to play. I mean, I just like to play. Now, football, I like to play, but I wasn't able to do that. So basketball and baseball really were my two sports growing up. And again, I talk about role models. My dad was my role model. My mom was the sergeant at arms, but my dad was the guy that always got us to little league games, took us on trips. We went to Cleveland to play, or I think we took groups in. And I know he got tired of the 100 bottles of beer on the wall, 100 bottles of beer, and how he put up with that. But he was the most gentle, kind person I was ever around. He understood people. In his business, he took care of everybody in town. He was known as Doc. And if you needed to get your eyes checked or whatever, if you didn't have any money, it didn't bother him. He never was concerned about that. So I understood that. I understood the idea of the mother and father taking care of the kids, having them grow up and stuff. So when people ask me that in my classes, who was my role model, it was my dad. The sergeant at home was my mom, but my dad got us everywhere. If we were doing something, he got off of work, made sure we could go. We played in Cleveland. We played in Youngstown. We played in Akron and in Legion baseball and stuff like that. So yeah, that's where I grew up. Fortunate. I got a coach that came in from, if you can understand again, in Geneva, was Spencer. And Spencer was 4 miles from Geneva. But in those days, everybody had their own schools. And they had, the smallest school, they probably didn't have 40 kids that went there. And they consolidated with us at the end of my sophomore year. And the guy's name is Al Bailey. He changed my life completely. How to act, how to dress, how to take care of the basketball. And we were fortunate to have a group that came from Spencer that came in and were just unbelievable players. And my junior year, and we really were really good. And we got upset on the last shot of a game when we thought we could be. And in those days, we were Division I, Division II. We were Division I. And so we got beat. The next year, we didn't have the same team. 4 guys graduated. So the reverse happened. 4 guys from Geneva played and 1 guy from the Spencer. As the junior year, it was 4 guys from Spencer, and I got to start. But he changed around. I mean, we were in magazines because of he used boots and galoshes, and he used boxing gloves, all those equipment things to make you look quicker, faster. So he had a connection. He went to Duquesne and played with Sahugo Green. I played with the Virginia Squires, Coach Virginia Squires. Irving was playing at that time. So he changed us. We wore London Fog. We all had top hats. We dressed up in shirts and ties and sports jackets. We were red and gray like the Buckeyes. We had ties. So he made us feel very important to him and to the community. And I'm not sure it's continued today, but it was an unbelievable person who just started us being young adults and responsible to each other and to ourselves. And that's where it pretty much started.
And Coach, who was in your division back then?
Well, we were Northeastern Ohio League, and that would have been 2 Painesvilles, Willoughby South, Madison, Jefferson, Conneaut, 3 teams out of Beulah. So we were the Northeastern Ohio League, and in all sports, and that's where it started. And then if we were able to get out of our sectional, we went to play. The one year we got beat by a guy called Emmanuel Leaks, which was Cleveland East. The Scarabs used to be the big team. Well, that year they beat the Scarabs, and it was Cleveland East. So we played them in the district finals and got beat by 4 or 5. They were really good, and I think they ended up making it to the state. That would have been 1962. And the next year, not being nearly as good, but pretty cohesive, we got to play Euclid in the district semifinals, who was, I think they were 19-1. We only played 18 games in those days. And the story was the guy that was supposed to scout us did not show up to scout us. And Doc Doherty, you know who Doc is at Euclid, we became friends because we played him in the districts and they didn't scout us, and he pressed. And pressing was like right up. I was like stealing for me. And they started Tom Murphy. Tom Murphy and Vic Murphy went to Ohio U. Tom was a pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers in those days. He was an Abernathy pitcher, and he played at OU. Berkey Reichenbach played at OU. Rick Krevling, who was a year behind, he came to Wittenberg as I was a sophomore. I played, but they were much bigger than us. We cheated on how tall we were. Our center was 6'1". You know, they came out and they laughed at us. We were the hayseeds from the farmland, and they were the city slickers. But they didn't take us very serious, and we ended up beating them. And I've been friends with Doc since 1963. We still communicate either email or text about things that are going on. And so we won it, and we lost to Emmanuel Leaks in the district finals. And we did the same in baseball. We got to the district finals in baseball, and Elyria beat us. So it was just a great atmosphere for all of us that played sports from 5 or 6 years of age till that college situation.
And did you have any favorite basketball player in those days you kind of idolized, or anybody college, pro?
Oh, Lenny Wilkins and Howard Comize. My sister went to Bowling Green, so I got to see some games. And Howard I'm left-handed, and so that was it. Now you're talking about baseball. It was Whitey Ford, Koufax, Billy Pierce. Anybody that was left-handed and pitched, you know, I idolized those people. But Howard Comize, I tried to play after, and Lenny Wilkins. Of course, in those days in the pros, you didn't see many games of those guys. But yeah, Howard was my man. I tried to emulate him shooting wise, and really enjoyed it. So yeah, that would have been in those days. I don't think there was anybody. I don't remember anybody from Ohio State, but that would have been my basketball guys right there.
Interesting how Lenny ended up, of course, being the Cavs head coach years later, and
oh,
really had a nice run with them for a while. You know, had a great team with Price and Doherty and Nance and all those guys.
That was the St. Louis, what do they call him back in the day? He played for Cliff Hagan, B. Hagan, and those guys. Hagan that played Bob Pettit. Mm-hmm. That was my team back in those days. St. Louis Hawks.
Okay, yeah, the Hawks. Yep. Yeah, I forgot about Bob Pettit. Yeah, your Hall of Famer right there. Yep.
Yeah. So if you ever got a game on Saturday, Sunday, you watch them. But again, the left-handed mode was both mine in basketball and baseball. Those are the ones I emulated after. And we had a great in the summer. If I go back to high school, we put an outdoor court in our town. And of course, you couldn't play inside in those days. You weren't allowed to play inside.
Really?
So, well, they didn't open up gyms till I think 70 or 71.
I didn't know that. Okay.
So outside was it. Well, we became the place to come in Geneva. Akron, Youngstown, sort of Western PA. They knew that we had 2 nights a week. We played and only had one court, and you better be pretty good. You better bring your game. Otherwise you sat out for an hour before you could get back and play. And so that really made it very competitive. They had to come to us because it was the only, well, I'm sure there was other courts, but people like to come there as that was the place to come to play.
No kidding. I never knew that. And when you, back in those days, you're end of high school or going into college, why Wittenberg? Like you have, you know, were other colleges you were looking at? Was it something was that always your first choice? And give us a little bit of a background on your experience at Wittenberg.
Well, the Wittenberg experience, again, changed my life. I had a couple different things. Obviously, my high school coach, and then I played for Eldon Miller at Wittenberg, had no clue how good they were. And in those days, too, there's only 2 divisions, Division I and Division II. There was no Division III till the mid-'70s in those days. So, again, I looked at Hiram. I looked at Baldwin Wallace, and that's Jim Tressel's dad, Lee Tressel. I met him, and he had the keys on his belt and the old Burr haircut. And so I looked at that. And then my dad said, did you ever think of Wittenberg? And I said, I don't know where it's at and what it's like. So we traveled in those days. C-71 was just getting started in those days. had to go to Route 40, even 70, I don't think was involved. I had to go through towards Marysville and Delaware that way to get over there. And for some reason, I really liked it. I really liked Coach Miller, who was very down to earth. And of course, a guy named Bobby Hamilton was there that coached there for a while. And I didn't know how good they were. I really didn't know how good, because it might have scared me off. I knew Baldwin Wallace was going to be pretty good. Hiram was 60 miles away, and Baldwin Wallace was, well, right there in Berea. So how I decided, well, there was a coach from Painesville that went to Wittenberg, and he told Eldon that I would start for them. And I didn't know that till he said, but so that's where I decided where I wanted to go. Well, also with baseball, we won the state championship in Legion baseball, and I had a choice to go to OU, which was Coach Wren. We became friends because my catcher, we had 5 professional baseball players that signed off of our Legion team that played in 2 years there.
Wow.
And it came after we won the Legion championship. And he said, hey, you want to come to OU? We'll give you a scholarship and you can room with your catcher, who was going to go there for football. And I said, Coach, I'd really like to try to play 2 sports. And I didn't know how hard that would be. But I said, both sports in basketball, I was all-state in basketball, and I played in the state all-star game in baseball. So everybody said, you should like baseball more. I mean, you're better. I said, but yeah, but I really like basketball. So those options were there. And I said, I really want to go. I'm going to try both sports. And I didn't know how good Wittenberg was. I really didn't understand it until I got in a year or so and saw how, it was like Ohio State, how to keep winning and how people hated you in the Ohio Conference. And it was a different perspective than trying to get to the top. You were at the top and you had to keep your excellence going, or people were going to, they gave you your best game every place. So the guy from Painesville said, hey, we think he can start for you. And of course, then I went, and my parents dropped me off and they went home. And I go, wait a minute. In the deal where now I'm on my own, and I didn't know what to do, but I knew one thing. I knew where the gym was at, and it was a 1945 gym. Old 1945 it started, and old place, which had a history of unbelievable 69 wins in a row at home.
Wow.
They were great. All won national champs in all their sports. And so I went to the gym, and that started everybody was in the same boat. We chose up and played and got to meet people. So I was very fortunate to be again in a place with Eldon and Bobby Hamilton. Those guys, and Phil Roach ended up being there as my senior year. Of course, he ended up being at Marietta for a long period of time. We're still friends. History there. But I didn't understand how to play, if that makes sense to you. I was so good at beating people individually and creating. I didn't care. When I got 10 points in high school, I quit trying to score. I just passed other people. It was so easy, but I didn't understand how to run a team. And it took me 2 years. I mean, I played JV basketball and dressed for the varsity, but I very seldom got in, typical. And they beat the heck out of people. They were so good. And Albert Thrasher and Bob Cherry were just unbelievable in sports. So I got to watch how to be successful. They were such great role models. And so I sat in my sophomore year, I was second string, but I was third string going in the game. And a freshman named Stevie Logan, who was my fraternity little brother, won 3 games coming off the bench as a freshman. And so I'm sitting on the bench going, this is not really conducive to my playing. But he did it. I mean, he was better than me. Great, 6'1" or so long, from Kettering, Dayton Kettering. Mm-hmm. And so I decided that didn't bother me. I was so blinded by thinking I could play. So I ended up staying on campus and that stuff. And then he didn't come back. Stevie Logan did not come back to Wittenberg for whatever. I'm not sure what it was. And I ended up starting because I understood I became a coach. I understood how to get winning combination, who needed to get the ball and how to get. So that really probably started my coaching. I understood that Eldon understood, just let me run it. And I could run the team. And he tells that story. He was going to tell me not to come out as a junior. And I didn't know this till college. He was going to tell me not, and I was too stupid maybe to understand, but the guy didn't come back. I was the MVP my junior year, and he was going to tell me not to come out that year.
Wow. That's an incredible story.
But I grew up as a person and as a basketball, how to run, how to do everything. You know, I understood how to get certain people the ball when they had to have it. And so that helped there. And then baseball, I got to play 3 years there. And I lost 2 games in college as a, but again, people hear this, people that have heard these stories before are probably going to listen to this guy. Yeah, we've heard that. I was an all-state pitcher. I pitched no hitter in high school. I pitched in the state all-star game. We won the state Legion championship. I pitched in the regional 7-team thing, and I pitched 2 innings my freshman year. That's all.
That's it. What was the reason? They
were good. They were so good. I didn't understand. We had guys that just had played a couple of years. And again, I watched how winners win. They were so good. They were national champs in football. They'd won 3 years before I came. They were national champs in basketball. Baseball, they won the league. They were so good in every sport. And so it changed my perspective, how to keep everybody in line to win. So after my sophomore year of baseball, after my freshman year, then I got to pitch like 4 or 5 games. And I won 4 or 5 games, 5 games. And won as far as you could go in baseball. They only had, in that division, there was no national champs. We won a regional, and that's as far as you could go. That's
really?
1966. There was no national champs. So we beat Youngstown State. We beat somebody out of Kentucky. And that was it. We just won it. And everybody said, okay, go home. My joke is Randy Ayers, who ended up being the coach at Ohio State. Yep. He was in high school during that period of time. And I can't think of his last name. Both of them went to Springfield South or Springfield North at the time. And Randy Ayers, after the baseball game, came over and asked for my autograph.
Really?
Yeah, because he was in high school. He evidently thought I was pretty good. So I claimed that he was one of the guys that got my autograph, and I've got his a few times after that. So our senior year, we came of age. We won the league championship, and we got beat by Otterbein, who had Timmy Pond and a guy that was about 27 years of age who came out of the service, came back to Otterbein. And we were 12-1 and got beat in the finals of the Ohio Conference. And all of a sudden, it's over. It's over now. What's going to happen? So I was fortunate. I had a chance to go to OU on a basketball grad assistant. I had a chance to go to Kent State, but Uncle Sam went, "You're perfectly fit to go to Vietnam," and they did not count grad assistants as teaching jobs. And so Eldon got me a job at Northwestern outside of Springfield, be similar to a county school outside of Cleveland or whatever. And I was the assistant basketball coach, and I helped with baseball. And so again, I became the other side of coaching, where I had to become part of the coaching staff. I think I really helped Eldon, honestly. He was set in his ways. And again, because I played, I understood what the guys needed to do in the game. So I think I was a pretty good ear to him, because I just understood what to do. And I think that helped me coaching wise a lot.
And when did you really discover your passion for coaching? Was it then? Was it when you were playing? I know you told me that running an offense obviously kind of got you in, thinking about it, but when did you really know, like, I want to be a coach?
Well, that helped my being an assistant coach like that in both those sports. And I got a degree in health and PE. because I like to be involved with activity and sports. I got a minor in general science. I had driver's ed. And then Eldon said, you need to get a master's in something other than those areas to be well-rounded. So I got a master's in administration. So I had a lot of different options, which I tell the people I teach who are going to be teachers, give yourself a lot of options. If you're just in one area in school teaching, there's a lot of those. You need to be well-rounded. So I got that degree. And then, of course, OU was out. That was Jim Snyder was the coach there. And Kent State, I don't remember who it was. But again, amazing stories. I just enjoyed it. So that's why I got phys ed and teaching, because I could be around sports. The coaching, other than being the assistant, probably helped me as much as when I got to be the point guard and run it. I enjoyed getting people involved because I cared less about scoring. I would score against the good teams because they wouldn't guard me, but they knew I ran the show. And so we played Vanderbilt, and Clyde Lee was, I outscored Clyde Lee at Vanderbilt. And the only reason we played him is because Ray Mears went to Tennessee and he wanted Eldon to play somebody so he could watch Vanderbilt play the Wittenberg style.
Really?
But Clyde Lee, who was a pro player, I got 15 points in the game and he got like 9 because they beat us by 25. He didn't play very much. But I think the experience of playing, number one, and two, being that assistant helped. The story then goes, you talked to Earl, and people that know me see this. I was walking down the hall 2 years after I graduated. It would have been 69. Bill Edwards, who's in the Hall of Fame in football, he was he was like the guy at Alabama. He wore the London fog, and so I'm walking down the hall after school. Yeah, he goes, Osborne. Yes, sir, Coach Edwards, Bill Edwards. He said, you looking for a job? I said, yes, I am. He said, have you ever heard of Gallup Police? I said, Coach, if you gave me 1,000, I wouldn't even know which direction to go. Honestly, I had no idea. He said, well, you get on 35 and you go to the Ohio River. And of course, we didn't have GPS. We had atlases. He said, you go to 35, you hit the Ohio River, turn right. If you go across the Ohio River, you're gone too far. That's all we knew. He knew a guy who was the patriarch of Gallup Police. His Holiday, Sheets, and Saunders, 3 lawyers that were here, all patriarchs of the town. And he said, they're looking for a basketball coach and a football coach. Would you be interested? I said, sure. And he said, if you know of anybody in football, please see if they want to go. So I found a guy, and that story's coming. We both came down, and my radiator boiled over, which is part. And so we came down, and they never asked me one question about basketball.
Really?
Not one, because basketball was Zippo. It did not even, it was something that maybe some players did during the winter. Football was it. Football was, as it is really today, it still is. I would have a house on a mountain, a mansion, if I was a football coach. But that's where it would have been. The guy that came with me interviewed. Well, the 2 questions he asked me, could I keep my keys? Could I keep discipline? I still have my original keys, which obviously don't work in the new high school. And to both of them, I did. The guy that came with me interviewed for football. He did not get the head job because we had a car dealer in Gallup Police. His son was going to teach. He became the football coach. This guy knew 100 times more than the guy they hired, and they went undefeated. We went 500. We came down, and the guy's name is Bob Wagner. You don't know that. He was from Newark, came down. He left after 1 year, and of course, I'm still here from 1969. He ended up knowing Don James, Toomey. He ended up in 77 at the University of Hawaii.
Really?
By 86, he was the head football coach at Hawaii.
Wow.
For 8 years. I said, you traded an ocean for a daggone Ohio River, Wags. So he should have had the job here and probably would have stayed. We coached track together, and neither one of us ever coached track. We never ran, did anything. I was baseball, and he played lacrosse in college other than football. To this day, he says, the reason I really stayed in football was because of our experience in track. We won the league track meet, and all we did was the throwers threw, the runners ran, we ran their butts off, and the jumpers jumped. And we won the league track meet. To this day. They really had some great ones, but we had no idea.
You had no experience. You won the league. That's incredible.
Well, we had really good. They were some of the best athletes around, and we set records at our school that weren't broken for like 30 years because our track was not 440 yards. It was 384 yards.
Really?
So they told us where you had to run extra, like a 440, you had to run an extra 60 yards. When we put those down, 100 yards wasn't too bad because they didn't have meters. So we put them down, but we were running sometimes 10 yards less, 5 yards and 100 yards. I mean, we set records that lasted for like 30 years. And we didn't tell anybody because we really didn't know a whole lot. So we won, and he left. And by 77, he was in Hawaii because of the networking, which you're still talking. I got a job because of networking. He got a job because of networking. He has a house in Hawaii on the Big Island. He has a house outside of Washington, D.C. So we converse every once in a while, and he says, come on over. And we were there, but it was going to be like $250 to fly from one island to the other. So I said, no, probably not good to do that. But that's how the world turns, that networking, how it's happened and done. So I was really fortunate to be in the right spot at the right time with Bill Edwards, and him knowing me and I don't know, I'd been there 6 years, but how he just picked me out in that moment and said, there it is. And we were 10-10 the first year, and everybody thought that was great. We practiced during Thanksgiving break, and the principal went, that's vacation. People go on vacations. Christmas, we practice during Christmas. And he went, you can't practice all this time because kids need a break. Football, they never had a break. I mean, we changed the atmosphere. And then we had a couple of really good players, a guy named Jimmy No, who I played golf with. He was about 6'2", and a guy named Gil Price. In about 72 or so, they started, and it became the place to come on Friday nights.
Really?
We had a pep band. We had a student section, and we're only talking about 900-seat gym. They called it the Barn, and it became a happening. That's where the kids wanted to come. We ended up having reserve seats because JV game, if you didn't get there during a JV game, we would do it. But those guys turned it around. They're both All-Americans, and they're all Ohioan in high school, and they were all Americans at Rio Grande during that time. So they changed it. And then it was just a matter of trying to find one really good player every year or so, and then have all the subordinates, the role players fit into that. So it is exciting every Friday night to come. We played Waverly, and that was Johnny Shoemaker. And they'd just been to the state the year before, and we put 500 people in our auditorium. That may have been one of the first where we put the cables and showed it on screen in the place because 900 people. Carol Hawhey was their coach, and we won a league championship against them. And we went to a regional, played in Dayton, which was a great thing. So those things just got our program going. And then we set up a routine with football. When do the football players need to go? When do they need to go in the summer? And we had great football coaches who we were able to coordinate. You got them during this period of time, then I get them. And we never tried to outdo each other. And so it's a town thing again. We had elementary kids. He got elementary kids, junior high. They went to football. And then they'd come at certain times in our old little gym. They could ride their bikes. And they knew they could count on us. I was there every day. I started out first couple 9 to 3. open gym in the summer.
Wow.
We couldn't even play inside. I told you we couldn't play inside till I think 71 or 72. Finally, we were able to go inside, and kids knew their parents could count on me being there for 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. When you came in, that's what it was like. So we initiated, and it became really important to everybody, not only the players, but their parents and to the community. It really became an important thing for them.
And Coach, how long did it take you? I know that was relatively soon after you started, really, that you started to establish that culture. But how long did it take you where you knew, like, okay, this is a culture now? Like, I have what I wanted to put in this program, and it's running smoothly. And, was it those first 3 or 4 years? Was it 5 years, 10 years? Like, when were you satisfied with the culture?
Oh, I don't think I ever got satisfied with the culture because you're always trying to tweak it one way or another. I think once we set it within about 3 years, because we were 10-10, then we were 5-15 my second year. Well, then Gil Price and Jimmy O and Top Rower and Kiesling and Sheets, they came in, and then we went to that regional. Well, then we lost 4 starters, but we won the league the next year when people didn't think we should win the league. And the open gyms became important. I went to all the other activities, so I wasn't just the basketball coach. And the community is great. It's just like my Geneva, people came to Geneva the same. It's almost identical. 5,000 people, 5,000 traded to Geneva on the lake for Ohio River, and people they always identify with winning, obviously, and they like to be. You want to be in the student section, and I think when it changed, it was when we had open gym in the summer. And the kids came. Everybody that was going to play came. Junior high kids came, and they got to watch the high school kids come. And we played on Wednesdays like we'd done outdoors in Geneva when Akron and Youngstown, those people came. That was alumni night. And we played on wooden boards on the side, and winners stayed and losers had to go to the other side. And our alumni was really good at coming back because they wanted to kick these young kids' butts. Junior high kids would sit on the sideline just mesmerized by what guys could do. I think that I was always leery if they didn't come, we'd lost them then, because you win in the summer. But it kept building that, and the grade school kids coming, and the elementary rinky-dink, we called it. We knew how to set that up and get it going, and I had a coach who was a part of that, developed it. So I'm not sure. But then it's always a fight because you got 2 or 3 years, maybe you don't have really good players. And then now what do we do? Some of the best teams I had were not the best playing teams, but they were best together. Mm-hmm. Just really neat and I had a birthday last Thursday, and I had over 300 people wish me a happy birthday. Wow. And the point being is that some of them were grandparents they were parents and now they're grandparents. And then their kids played for me. And then they got kids that played for me because 1969 to 2010, I coached them all. I was around all of them. So still I'm Coach Oz. That's who I am to these people. And now I'm a much better coach now than I was when I coached. I always found that out. I know a lot more now because these parents are fans. They'll come to me and say, what would you have done? Or how did you do this? And so I think I had chances to go. I interviewed at Camp McKinley. Believe it or not, I think I had the job, and then they hired a guy from Southern Illinois. And that year, had the job on Sunday, and Tuesday they hired this guy and a guy named Gary Grant. You know that name?
Oh, yeah, point
Gary
guard.
Grant.
Point guard. Yep. Went to Michigan.
Yeah.
Yep.
He moved to Camp McKinley as a sophomore.
Wow.
So Delaware, Springfield, I had a lot of options. Part of that was my wife worked at Ohio Valley Bank, which is a community bank here. And I said, if I'm coming, she needs to get a job. Oh yeah, we can find her a teller job. I said, no, you don't understand. in 2 years, she was in administration at Ohio Valley Bank and just finished 49 and a half years. So it was either they didn't like me, what I was going to bring, or I didn't like them necessarily for what it was going to bring. And then her job was in the middle of that. And we weren't going to pick up and move when she had a really good job too. So
that makes sense. I mean, the fact you're somewhere for 41 years is incredible. Number one. And Gary Grant, you mentioned Gary Grant. It's funny. I have an NBA page I run. It's called the 90s NBA on Instagram. And I actually posted him. He played for the Clippers for a while. And he got a lot of responses from other point guards in the league at that era who remember him very well. And of course, his Michigan days and everything else. So Gary Grant, I know Eric Snow went to, I don't know if he went to McKinley. He went somewhere in Canton or Akron, out there. And there's a lot of, obviously CJ McCollum is from Canton. So a lot of NBA talent came from that area. And I always tell people, Coach, Ohio in general, I don't care what part of Ohio, but as a whole, has so much high school talent in baseball, basketball, football, you name it. It's just one of the most talented states, and I actually had Corey Jones, who played with LeBron James. He played at Walsh University and played with SVSM with LeBron. I had him on last week, and he was talking about how all the guys he played against in Ohio, and there's just so much talent here. And I want to get into that. One of the questions I have for you in your 41 years of being a high school coach at Gallipolis, who was the toughest player you ever had to face?
Oh, I'll come back to that in a second. Let me do some thinking on it, because that's we played the guy we played at in a regional was Harry Wilson. They called Harry the Horse, and he ended up going to Missouri as a football player, but we couldn't guard the guy. It was Jeff Curry. His name was Curry, and he went to Missouri and was a 20 point a game. I'd have to think about that for a second, because there's a lot of people. Let me think about that for a little bit. Let's go to another.
And
it'll come about 3:00 this morning.
You're like, oh, yeah, I remember. So on that same note, who was the toughest team you ever had to face? I mean, and maybe it's a team in your conference, but in a certain year they're very tough. Or, is there anybody you look back on and said that team was really tough to play?
Waverly was really good till about the 80s. Hawhey got out, and then he coached every sport.
Did he really?
Every sport at Waverly. Football, basketball, baseball, track. He coached all of them. So he ran the school. I mean, I have some friends that she was a cheerleader, and her husband ended up, Billy, is from Gallipolis. Well, he ended up playing for Woody in the same time, 63 to 67. And she talks about Hawhey calling her house saying, Johnny needs to be in by a certain time. I hope that you will make sure that happens. But he ran it. So Waverly was very, very good. There were some Athens teams with Coach McAfee were really, really good. Another one that comes to mind that we battled for years was Logan Elm and Doug Iverson. That we had some great battles in the 90s or so. They were good. Warren local, Blaine Maddox. They've developed a really good program. There's been some Portsmouth. We had trouble. You think about, we won a couple districts. Portsmouth has won 39 districts.
Have they really?
39.
Wow.
So they had some teams that were they just pressed you, and they were really good. Ironton had some really good teams. Our league fluctuated. It was called the Southeastern Ohio. It was basically Jackson, Logan, Athens, us, Wellston. There was about 7 or 8 teams in it, because of whatever teams got out, because football, we were really good in football. So they got out. Basketball, so they went to leagues up around Athens and played in that. So those are teams that we battled. Athens was really good with Coach Mack. One time we had 3 coaches that won over 500. Coach McAfee won over 5, and Hawhey won well over 500 games, and I was able to get over 500. So the league battles. Remember playing Thompson, that played at Ohio State as a linebacker. went from New Boston, Allstate, which was like 4 miles to get to Waverly. You know where New Boston's
Oh,
at?
yeah. Yep.
But he moved to Waverly, and he started as guard. And we had the Woody Hayes came down to watch us play, and Waverly had a 2,500 seat gym, and he was there to watch Thompson play. And of course, he went to Ohio State, and became a great linebacker. I run into him every once in a while. Shoemaker went to Miami of Ohio, and then he dealt with the Dodgers. He signed professionally, and he still, it's Salt Lake, Utah or something. He took over. He used to do the AAA in Vero Beach baseball, and he left that. He has championship rings that because of AAA, and he never wanted to go up with the big time. And I think 2 years ago, he ended up being in Utah in Class A, and have a picture of him carrying baseballs to go pitch batting practice, with a rake, just Class A baseball with the Dodgers. So that would have been one of the, Shoemaker was one of the really, really great players, very competitive, great baseball as well as basketball. And he played football and went on to be a professional baseball guy.
And when you look back at all your memories in those 4 decades, is there one that sticks out to you?
Well, every year was different. And I was rewarded by the kids I got to coach and the parents. I really never had problems. So you're going to say 1 year. We went to the regionals again in 2002 or so, and we had all of the teams that I had, I think they really liked each other. Even if they weren't great, they went out to eat with each other. They left practice. They came to practice, got rides from everybody. So I'm not sure if I had one, because they all had their own identity. And the key for me is they liked to come to practice, and they liked each other. So I'm not sure. The first ones with Gil and Jimmy, that I still see, they send me birthday greetings. I played golf with Jimmy and Gil. We played. That's the oldest group. But I would be sliding my friends now, because when they leave our program, they're my friend forever. And that's important. So even my people that didn't play a lot, I hold a high regard for how they felt about the team. They sacrificed, and they weren't selfish about, and their parents weren't selfish about playing time, because they knew in the end they were having fun being around a group. So I don't know that I could really take one and say this one was more special than another, because we even lost. We had some clean years. In 41, you're going to have a few. Now, I understand that we won 11 league championships, and we were second 11 times.
So 22 times in the top 2.
41 years, we were first or second over half the time.
Incredible.
And I didn't think about it when we were playing, because I hated when we came in second. Favorite got, the Athens got us, or the Ironton got us, or Portsmouth got us when they came in the league. But I never thought about that till they go, well, you have to put a resume out here, because we don't want to say what you've done. But we just, I don't know that I could pick out one group over another, because I'd be sliding people that maybe some of the best were teams that didn't even finish 500, and how competitive they were, and came to open gyms, and spent the time, and got in and lifted weights in the fall, came from football tired, and came to basketball. So I'm much better off saying they all were very important to me in their own way.
And assistant coaches over the years, have you had any that became head coaches? And talk about some of the assistants you had.
Well, Heath McInnes is at Jackson now. Point Pleasant is Josh Williams. I had Coach Van Meter, of course, was at Greenfield. Norman was at, he came from Oak Hill. When he went to Oak Hill, both of the Van Meter and Pearson, they were about 3 years different, but they were buddies at Rio. I mean, they lived and died with each other. So I got Norman, and he left and went to Oak Hill, and 18-2 his first year and unbelievable. And then when he left, I got Coach Van, and just unbelievable people. And I'm not sure they ever took to holler and screaming, but maybe it was what I got from them, or I gave to them, was organization, discipline, and defense. And neither one of them played the same defense or the same offense, but they learned. I think it helped teach them how to control the game. We were always known as people that held the ball. People hated to play us because they said we held the ball. And that, I'm not sure that's so, because we probably shot faster than the team we played because they couldn't get a shot. But we based ours on, and we're going to not give over 50 in a game. We're not going to get out rebounded. We're not going to give up more turnovers. And the last 2 minutes of the game is ours. And we practice that way. And our kids know, and I'm sure the other coaches that say you don't want to get behind. We played Wheelersburg. Wheelersburg was also very, very good. And Southern was also very good with Carl Wolf and Howie. We played at Wheelersburg, and we were not going to be picked to win at Wheelersburg. That's obviously, that didn't happen very often. But we got the ball to start the fourth quarter, and we're down 5. We held the ball the entire quarter. And the referees as soon as they had to go to each other and figure out, did he dribble or not? Can he still dribble? But and honestly, we played, we didn't throw it in the stands. We didn't shoot it wild shots, but I think Van Meter and Pearson both got how to control the game. And that's why I told Coach Harrison, who's our coach now, who scored 1,300 points. I said, hang your hat on something, but if you're going to do it, figure out how to control the game so you can win it with any players you got. Heath does that. We had Bill Leedy that was at Frankfurt Adena. Dick Parsons ended up here and going towards Parkersburg, Morgantown, to coach in that area. Jimmy Knighty that helped us and was in football. Tommy Hopkins, David Hopkins, his brother. These guys did a great job for us in junior high. So we were really fortunate. You're talking about developing it. Our grade school program was developed how to play. I mean, it wasn't, they could run up and down, but they prized the ball, and they liked to play. When we got done, they liked to play. Junior high, both our 7th and 8th grade, they ran and pressed. And people said, they're not playing like you're going to play. I said, no, I won't. If they could teach them how to play and they want to come back, that's the most important thing. And could they play together? So both Hoppy and Jimmy did that, because I'd have the junior high coach come to me later, not those two. They'd go, Coach, Billy wasn't very good in junior high. I said, well, 1, he grew 4 inches, but 2, you had the building blocks of these guys. So when I got them, I just had to shape them a little bit, and they understood how to play. You taught them how to play. I just coached them a little bit so they understood how to win. And so our program was set up that way. And again, fortunate to be in one place. So they knew what they were getting from me, good or bad. Everybody in town knew what they were getting from me. And we'd had no buttholes, none. Players were taken out of practice if they acted like idiots. And in a game, if they got a technical, they came out and they sat next to me. And if they didn't act right, my favorite saying was, I'm going to forget your name. And that meant you may never get back in the game. They understood that. So we had, just the system grew with me, part of it. I guess I was the director, but all these other people, all the aunts, the townspeople, the sponsorships of things, because they knew what they were getting with me. They knew how I felt, how I took care of their kids. Their kids were very, very important to me. We went to hospitals. We went to different places to show them how to sing at Christmas and things like that. We went to places where they understood about life. So I think most of my players would say that about me. It wasn't necessarily my coaching. It was life skills that I provided for them, whether they went into business or whatever they happened to get into. So yeah, there's many more coaches that were in there that just helped me at different levels. And I was blessed to have them who maybe sacrificed their own attitude about how they wanted to play. But all I wanted them to do was, one, teach some skills, how to play together, and want to come back the next year. If they want to, that's all. Then the next group, the next coach will take them and sort of build it up from there. It's fun. I got in, I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't how to develop a program. Think about offensive coordinators get the football and they become a head coach. What do they know about being a head coach? Or defensive coordinators, they're going to they don't know. I didn't know. I played. I had to change how I talked to people. I was not a talker, but I had to communicate skills, development, teamwork. But I didn't know that. Pieces hit, and the players were, they were accepting what I told them.
And coach, when you look back at the philosophy of coaching, it's been really the game of basketball from the 60s all the way to now, because you've seen it all. You've seen all the changes. Back then you said there wasn't even open gyms out, you had to go outside and play, which is, that's in my generation, that's crazy to think about. But the fact that so you've been through it all. When you look at the game of basketball, what has been the biggest change from the 60s, 70s to now? We talk about the Steph Curry effect with the 3-pointers and everything like that. What do you think has been the biggest change?
How they're going to win, how people, and you got to satisfy so many egos today. Television, all the, you think about it, they don't have to scout. There's no scouting anymore. You can go to JJ Huddle, and even in practice, you've got the big old thing on the wall. You can replicate practice. You could take that and send it to your players within 10 minutes. You can see if they're screwing around at practice or a game. The games can be done in like 15 or 20 minutes. So the immediacy, I think ours, the first year we had to put our 16 millimeter or 8 millimeter, we had to put it on a bus and send it to Charleston on Friday night to get it back maybe by Sunday or Monday to even look at it. So now it's all immediate. All the players, Grant can do it within minutes. They can go on that phone and they can see every play. The scouting's gone. Harrison showed me a scouting report one time. I said, man, I couldn't believe you could do that. He said, I didn't do that. JJ does it. So, in baseball and stuff, if a guy hits so many percentages to the left field, or they do that in basketball. They know where every player, where he shoots from, if he's a 3-point threat, all out of bounds, everything is so much less. You have less things to worry about in your doing. But I think the psyche may have changed more than anything. You got to kiss kids' butts, some now, or parents' butts, to appease them. And if they don't, high school now, you can transfer. I think you're allowed to hire one transfer anywhere along the line. Colleges, obviously, you can do that. We were always communities, and now those communities have become travel teams in AAU. And a guy I talked to last week said they don't depend on going to high school games. They go to travel teams in the summer. That's where they recruit players, because they can see them play 30 or 40 games in the summer, anywhere from California to Maine. They can do that. So it's become a media thing. During the winter when we had COVID, I asked our coaches, because the Gallup Police was not able to practice during that time. River Valley was able to, so I couldn't do that. But I went to Josh Williams in Point Pleasant. I asked them all. I said, I can coach him because I'm not beholden to any school. I'm not a coach at any school. He said, let me get back to you. They said, Coach, we got it set up. We went through our state association, and you're not a coach in our system. He said, I'll get the players. And if you haven't seen the picture of the route in Gallup Police, you need to Google it. Unbelievable place.
Really?
Yeah, just Google the route.
The route, okay.
ROOT. And so we set up practice. I had it for 2 weeks. It daggone near killed me. I haven't practiced for 2 weeks in 10 or 11 years. But the kids came in, and I said, Josh can't be here, so you're my team. For 2 weeks, you're going to be my team. I'm going to coach you like I want you to be better because I've been around you. You go back to Josh. If he wants to do something different, that's fine. And so from how to go out and warm up, practice before practice, shooting skills, ball handling, cutting, pass and dribble, all that stuff, we put it in. I only had 90 minutes. In fact, the first 3 days I went over, and they about kicked me out because I was over my time. Volleyball nets up on these courts. So I did 2 weeks, and they went home and they said, yeah, this guy's old school. And some of their parents knew me or had their kids back in the day. And yeah, that's all right. You'll learn something from him. But it was great. And they accepted it. And then I went to see him play over there, and they didn't do a thing I said. They had no emphasis on defense. They played 1-3-1, and they were big. 6'5", 6'6" kids. They're going to be good. Had a guy scored over 1,000 points. Hunter Bush was great, and it was great. I had former players that were coaching their grade school kids on another court. They'd come over there, and we knew who that was because we could tell by the hollering and screaming. and one of the players, I couldn't tell. He had long hair. And of course, middle of the first week, I said, all of you ought to get your hair cut like you're going to be a basketball player, like you're representing Point Pleasant. And he had a hat that he wore backwards, and I could not tell he had it on. And I had Chad Barnes and Todd Miller, a couple of these guys, and they came down afterwards and they berated me. I said, Coach, I can't, have you lost it? You let a guy wear a baseball cap to practice? And I went, honestly, guys, I didn't see it. So the next night I went, yep, Kai, you can't wear that. Coach, I said, I'm sorry. My former players are going to destroy me if you're allowed to wear a hat. Because shirts are always tucked in. Came to practice. It was a yes, sir. If you got technical in practice, and now I gave tees. But I got to practice them for 2 weeks. Went over and saw them play. Was not happy with how they played, but that's how the coach wanted to play. At the end of the season, I went over because the seniors, it was senior night over there. And I stood up and clapped for the seniors because they were part of my group. And that the younger kids are still part of mine. It was kind of fun to do that. It's been, I'm a little old guy from Geneva, Ohio. I'm just plain and simple. I was so shy. Sports was how I voiced myself. And pretty soon that I had to change that because I had to become an adult. I'm not an adult sports-wise, as far as I still mess around and people don't know how to take me, but I'm an adult as far as how to get things organized, and that I had to change it. And I had to verbalize, which I wasn't very good at, verbalizing how to get people in the right spot and how to act as a human being. So I've been totally blessed. I thoroughly enjoy all of those people that sent me happy birthday. I was just overcome with that they would take the time, even if it's just happy birthday. I'll tell you one more of that, because I know your last month and a half ago, I had he was my former manager trainer. His name's Roger Harbor. He ninth. I said, Roger, how did you really get to be with me? He said, well, Buddy Moore took me as ninth grade as a manager. And in my sophomore, junior year, I was with you. And we called him Mikey Milktoast. He had no athletic ability. He was just, he had no skills at all, but he became my manager. Balls were polished the night before the game. Everything was meticulous. He then graduated, went to Ohio U as a trainer because he liked it. Went to Illinois and got his master's at Illinois in physical therapy and training. Ended up going to Tampa, Florida, and at 57 years old, got his doctorate in medical science and physical training. 2 months ago, he calls, he said, Coach, I'm going to be coming to Ohio to see my sister in Columbus. I want to know if you're going to be home. I said, oh, you tell me the day, I'm going to be home. So last Friday, he came in. We spent about 4 hours together, and I told him that I loved him. And I've saved that for Brett is another one that I love, Tyler. And I think I embarrass people because guys don't tell guys that. And we were at the courtside, and I said, Rod, you understand if I haven't told you. I hope I have, but I love you because of who you become and what you've done. I said, how long are you staying? Well, I said, I got to go back through 33 and the old stomping grounds, and I'm going back to Columbus. And I think he's got a sister that lives in Powell. He was leaving the next day. He came to Columbus one day, came down here, turned around, went back, maybe Sunday. It was a Friday, so he left on Sunday, all because he wanted to come here. I mean, what a blessing I've had. And he wasn't a player, but he was just somebody. When I went in the Hall of Fame, he came all the way from Tampa. His wife said, why are you going up there for that? He was just, you just work for him. He said, because I have to go. And he surprised me, walked in, said, Coach, how you doing? So I've been blessed with so many. And everybody thinks you think about the guys that played for you. I think a lot of them were guys that didn't play, that were subs. I respect them so much, and I tried never to make them feel little or not important to the team, because obviously that all those people are very important to you. So, story. So my birthday's Thursday. You don't have, I can talk now. I understand. Thursday is my birthday. And I've told Brett this too. I am a person who thinks if you go left or right, there's a reason why you do that. And something happens. So I played golf. I belonged to the patient advocacy for Holzer Hospital. It's just to help patients if we can make things better for them. And I had a tennis lesson. I coached tennis for 25 years here, played a lot of tennis. And the tennis lady quit. Or she said, I can't make it. So I called my wife. I said, we can go out to eat. Okay. So we go to, other than courtside, there's on Tuscany's is a place. It's Italian, but it has everything. So again, they put us literally by the front door. So here comes in a nurse who I'd had in school, and she was a cheerleader, and her fiance, who had played for me 2 years. They come in, they said, Coach, happy birthday to you. We saw that. And I remembered it was his birthday too. His birthday was on mine. They went back and sat down. And then a girl I had just phys ed. I think I've had so much fun teaching phys ed. It's unbelievable. It's just, people think you just shoot that off the side and you just coach. No, I enjoyed every day, making kids compete, have fun, winners, losers, just had a great time. And the girl comes by, I said, Coach Osborne, how you doing? I said, I'm doing great. And she had a young child, 2 or 3 year old. I said, well, what are you doing? She said, it's my birthday. I said, congratulations. We got 3 of us in here. So she ended up leaving, and the lady in front, 2 of the waitresses I'd had in school, which is like, 69 to 2010. And I said, my wife said, what do you think we ought to do? I said, I want to buy them dinner. That'll be my birthday present from me to them, because I know what kind of people they are. So we fidgeted around with the host, the waitresses. They're coming up. We're trying to figure out how we can do that. And we're looking at them. I said, don't look at them. We don't want them to know. And so finally we figured it out. We bought them dinner. I said, that's my best birthday present right there, is given to somebody else. And when you get older, you don't need stuff. I don't need stuff. But I try to make somebody happy every day. And so we walked out. Here comes the cheerleader. She's Miss Bouncy around. She comes out there, Coach, you didn't have to do that. I said, I wouldn't have done it if I had to do it. I said, because I really enjoy being around you. And Kyle is still part of our program, even though he's graduated. So me still staying in this town, I don't have people that move every 3 or 4 years. Earl, he stayed in Rio Grande for all that time. He knows everybody, referees, coaches, all that stuff. We've been so privileged to be in the same. He's been in the same house since early 70s. I've been in here since 77. We have enjoyed not only coaching, but being around so many people that we can identify with. If you're moving every 3 or 4 years, you have no home base. I don't think you can do that, and it's hard to do it. So just in like 2 days there, Thursday and Friday, it made my birthday, and it made my day. That's for sure.
Those are some great stories. And it really is. I see it with my brother, even, where he's at Piketon, and I just, how he knows everybody knows their family. And, I came from a city called Avon Lake and west of Cleveland. And it's also very very big on hometown and everybody. I was kind of a new kid when I went there in 6th grade. So I didn't have any family from there. My brother went to North Homestead and my sister went to Westlake. So I was new. I didn't have any family members, but after a few years, they kind of embraced me as their own. And now when I go back there, Coach, wherever I go, I mean, there's people, hey, Brad, hey, so it's really cool to have that feeling of like you belong somewhere, that that kind of camaraderie and the friendship. And you were talking about how you were telling your players that you love them, and you're the guy you saw on Friday. I think that's so important as you get older as well, just because I've lost friends when they were younger. I lost a couple different friends, and I'll tell you what, I wish I can go back. And back then, you're right. Guys are macho. You don't want to say that all the time. I look back now and I would have told both of them that. I actually did tell the one, but the other one I never got to tell that to. And he was 19 when he passed. We were best friends. And I always wish I could have told him that. So I think it's very important, with anybody in your life you're close to, that you tell them that. And I tell everybody that now, but I used to not be like that when I was younger. So that's very important. And one of the questions, I have a couple more questions for you, Coach, and I really appreciate you doing this. Anybody who's coming into coaching now, what advice would you give a young coach?
Be yourself would be number one. That's what I always talk about Gary when he became is put the hat on your head and make the hat yours. Don't be my hat. You can't coach like me, because I didn't know. And we were based on defense. So if you're going to win in every sport, it's the most important ingredient other than teamism is your defensive concept, because you can win with less talent and bad night shooting if you can control, as I said before, control the game. And so that's what I told Gary. You can, and he does it some. People go, is that how? Well, my way of playing it would have been, because they'll shoot the ball in the last minute of a quarter, they shoot it. Because he said, we're just going to turn it over. We might as well get another chance to get it. And then the other team holds the ball on them. They get the last shot. It would be, as I do with teachers, is you have to gain your players' trust. In teaching, kids will do, and parents and people in general will do what you ask if they trust you. People that I got stuff from, sponsorships, people trusted me. They knew I stood for something. So I think that's what I've imparted. You can make 1st graders or 12th graders. I've got college kids the same way. They trust me when I say this is how I'm going to teach. They understand. That's what I stand for, is that trust. So I think that's number one. You gotta, and it doesn't happen in a day. Mine was outside in the back courts my first year at 6 o'clock at night, trying to get guys to shoot hoops back there. No insert. They trusted me. They knew I'd be there. And it started. They could count on me. When we started open gym in the summer, they could count. I was going to be there. I would take care of their kids. So I think trust is one of the most important thing. And then obviously the bond. You have to develop a bond in your players that we're all in this, whether it's football. Alex Penrod does a great job. Tyler does a great job at Piketon. You see the winners, they build that camaraderie and they have trust. When a coach says something, you got to trust what they say. And, some parents are fakes, some coaches are fakes, and the players, they do it only because they have to. But when it comes push or shove about time to win, they don't all put it all in there because they don't trust their coach or their parents to do that. So that would be mine, developing a trust. And it takes a lot of time to do that, a lot of effort to make your players understand how great you feel about them and how important they are to your program.
And one last question for you. And Coach, I ask every guest this question. I love hearing the answer to this. Looking back at your career and your life, what do you want people to know about your legacy?
I've tried to deal with the word legacy, and I'm not sure what that means. All the pro players, that's all they want. They want this legacy, how many championships and what they did. I would like my players and people to understand that I am real. What you see is what you get from me. Whatever sport, tennis, I coached the heck out of tennis. My tennis players, they love baseball. I did for 10, 11 years. And it was, I think, a feeling, a bond of how I felt about my players. And it doesn't happen every school. And I've been fortunate to be here a long time. And that's grown. But it would be how much I love being around these people, win or lose. I like the teams that lost as much as I like the teams that won. So I'm not sure if it's wins, then I won a bunch of games, and it becomes less important to me the longer I get away from it. It doesn't matter. So it would be a feeling that I took people and helped them grow up to be good adults and how to act around each other. Probably that's kind of corny, I guess, but it was more about that to me than it was winning a game. We didn't play players sometimes if they broke rules, and had we played them, we would have won. And people knew that. So I was about my word. If I said this is the way it is, then I don't know. It's a whole lifestyle. You see what I got? I got this stuff on my face. For 41 years of coaching and teaching, I never had a hair on my face that wasn't shaven. Nothing. My hair was always washed. And when I went in public, that's why I wanted people. I never looked saggy, or wherever I went, I looked what I thought was proper anyway. And one time I went to Speedway, and I didn't, my hair was not washed. And a guy next to me went, "Coach," he said, "You didn't wash your hair." And I went, one time. But that's
you get caught one time.
That's what I stood for, is if I'm going to ask you to do it, then I'm going to act that way too. And I hoped I presented it to my players and how much I cared for them. And it's more than, winning games. I try to win every game. But that, in the end, it just didn't, it really gets less important as the $1 million winners was Roger Harbor coming last Friday. That was $1 million deal. I won $1 million. The kids I saw on Thursday, even a phys ed kid, girl, phys ed. I mean, she came up and said, "Boy, I really enjoyed that. We really had a good time." I said, "I hope so," because I never shortchanged any teaching class I had. And there's coaches that threw the ball out and did their coaching, didn't serve their, the kids in regular classes. And again, I think that came from mom and dad. You know that. You had great mom and dad. You and Brett are not idiots. You were raised properly. You look back on how your parents took care of you. At the time, you may not have liked it, but I think you understand what I'm saying about parents, and it's that important. My parents are really parents I had that I'm losing more of the parents that I coached, their parents. I've got a couple in their 90s, but I always talk about somebody has passed away, and I always put a text out there, a message saying that was one of my Blue Devil basketball moms, because they were important. They fixed us food and everything. So, but you understand what I'm saying about your parents. They were really important to me, and they got sold on who I was. They trusted me with their boys and girls to do the best with them I could, and that would be my legacy. I think the trust they put in me to help them grow up and become good young adults.
Well, Coach, I mean, I think, and a lot of the people I have in here have similar answers, where it's really about the people they affect more so than what their individual accomplishments are. And even I've had some NBA players on, all types of people on, and they all say similar things, where in the end, they don't really, the individual stuff was fun at the time, but they look back and they realize it's the relationships they built and everything else that really was the key to everything. So, I enjoy hearing those answers, and thank you for sharing that. Well, Coach, I want to thank you for coming on the program. This has been an honor having you. And, the fact that you have coached for 41 years, I mean, anybody listen, think about that. I mean, I'm 37, so you coached 4 years longer than I've been alive. I can't even imagine that. So, and the fact that you had such an impact on that city, and really your impact has felt all through the state of Ohio because you're from Geneva. You have, you've been in different places. You played at Wittenberg. So you are someone who, is a part of the legacy of sports in Ohio in the last 60 years. And I think that's something to be very proud of.
I'm thoroughly blessed because I had no idea where I was going. I went to Wittenberg and had no idea what they were like. So I faced building a program up, and I faced being in the program, and we were the hunted dog here too. People always wanted to beat us. When they beat us, it was like they went crazy, able to do that. So it just, I don't know. It just developed. I'm not sure that people say, did you want to be a coach? I'm not sure that I ever thought what coaching was and teaching. I really didn't have a great idea what that was until I'm in that classroom sweating bullets with a sports jacket on, and these 30 people they want to know if I know anything. But thoroughly enjoyed it. I told you I had chances to go different places. Helped do college. I could have gone back to Wittenberg as an assistant, things like that. And I don't regret one moment of staying right here. It's my home now. I've been here more years than some people who have moved in here. I'm like one of the founding fathers because I can go back to the late 60s and deal with that. It's really been a privilege for me to be on here. I still enjoy grade school. I go to grade school kids and work with them, and Point Pleasant kids I've worked with. We just had the Hoop Project 3-on-3 league, had 105 teams. Earl and I were, we
saw
just
that.
walked.
Yeah, Earl put it on Facebook. I saw that. Yeah.
We get to, if there's problems, we get to go try to figure out how to take care of the problems. Robbie Pugh does a great job of running it. We started with maybe 37 teams 5 or 6 years ago, and we've had as many as 150, 160 teams. Much better, I say, than Gus Macker. You get, if you get a technical now, you get fined $20 and you have to put it in before you can ever get back on the floor again.
Oh, really?
So we got college referees. It's the biggest happening in Gallipolis for a couple of days, July 4th or something, but it's right on First Avenue and outside. But you need to Google the route to see, because we had to go inside, and we probably had 400 or 500 people congregated around 3 courts. We played 6 half-court games at one time. Robbie's done a great job of producing it. I'm living the dream. I've just thoroughly enjoyed all the people. I have to throw in a word about my wife. She's put up with me now. We've been married 40 years. She sacrificed a lot for me to do this stuff, getting home late and her working. And I'm not sure how she's lasted with me. I have not told her I loved her enough. And I need to do that more, because without her, I couldn't have ever done the things that I've been able to do. That's for sure.
Well, again, Coach, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And it's just fascinating to see where you were, in Geneva when you're a little kid, all the way to where, what you became, which is a legendary coach. So I think it's a fascinating story. And it's really going to be fun for people to hear this, because I love having people like you and Coach Thomas and other people on the show who, who've done it for so many years and really can kind of help the youth coming up, who want to be coaches and want to get into that, and to see how you guys did it and to have that kind of longevity. I mean, 41 years. It's just incredible. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. 41
of those, 25 of tennis, 25 years tennis, 1 year of track, and then 10, 11 years of baseball, which everybody said you should just be a baseball coach. And I kept saying it.
It's a tough sport.
Talking with you, I hope that we can consider doing stuff more often, because Brett, I told him and Tyler, I love them for who they are and what they represent to their community. And he's got a great wife, and his 2 boys are great. I didn't know him well when he played at Rio, but I know Earl talks about him, and I saw him play, how competitive and how eager he is to make things good for not only him, but the people around him. And I'm sure you've done that with this yourself too.
100%. Yeah, he really is. He's a great, for me, he was a role model coach growing up because I got to
Oh,
see his work ethic and watch him playing in the snow. And, and so I got to understand, I didn't get it as a little kid as much, but as I got older, it sunk in. And I realized how much of a work ethic he had and what he's all about. And, he is, there's no ego. He's very modest. So I kind of learned from him, how to act, how not to act. And it was really him, he's a really big role model in my life. So.
Good question now. But how did you get into this job that you're doing, the podcasting you're doing? How did you get involved?
Interesting, Coach. I started this page. It was a couple years ago. My nephew wanted me to start an Instagram page. I didn't know much about Instagram. So, he said, hey, why don't you start a page in something you're passionate about? And I thought, okay, So I said, I like the 90s era of the NBA because that's when I grew up, with Jordan, all those guys. So I started this page and was posting pictures of all these guys, Olajuwon, Jordan, et cetera. And all of a sudden, Dennis Rodman shouted me out. And then, I had, Scottie Pippen like a post. And so now I think it's over 200 NBA players that follow the page, current and former. Klay Thompson follows the page. I've talked to him before. So all these different guys that follow now. And I had Kenny Anderson on the show. I had a ton of different guys. So I've connected with a lot of people because of it. It all started because of that silly Instagram page. Isn't that funny?
You went that path.
That hit me when you said that, whether you go right or left, it's interesting to see what life takes you. And I always tell people, if you do something you're passionate about, and I just have a passion for basketball in general, and people can see it from the page I run. And it's not, I don't do anything special, but what I do is I'll talk about each individual player, and I'll talk about the guys who barely played. I don't talk about just Jordan and those guys. I talk about the guys at the end of the bench who barely played in the 90s, and people love it because all these former players are like, I play with that guy. He was one of my teammates, so they appreciate it. I'm not just talking about the big popular guys. So that's how I've had a lot of players on the show because of that.
Your enthusiasm just pours out, and that's what makes you good, and that's what makes coaches good. When they're real, you're a real person, and people, you're not a fake. And you can see it in our time here. Where I'd say something, you got excited about it, and you say something, I got excited about it, and people love that when you're genuine. I mean,
they really do.
See, because you are a genuine person.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think from my page, I think that kind of comes off just by how much passion I have for it. So that's how I've attracted all those NBA players. I mean, I have NFL players, MLB players, all types of people that follow the page now just because, they know I have a passion for it. And they know that I'm going to represent each of those players. I'm not just going to talk about the popular guys or, I talk about everybody, and they appreciate, not many people do that nowadays. Everybody wants to talk about just the big guys. Sure. So, I wanted to talk about that entire era, and so it's got me, and it got to the point, Coach, where I just started asking some guys, hey, you want to be on the show? And yes. I was like, let's start a podcast. So that's how it kind of came about.
It's amazing where you can go when you have enthusiasm and excitement about what you like, your passion. And I think that's what's helped me and the Normans and the, Van Meter and all those people that have won. Howie Caldwell, he was like that. McAfee was like that. It's amazing in any sport, and anything in life, in business. You got a boss that's it's not all about him. It's about enthusiasm and stuff. And people want to work for people like that. I mean, you can get them to do all kinds of things because they know you're a genuine person. You can't fake it because you're too damn good at what you do. People want that.
Exactly. And you can't fake it. Either you have it. I mean, when it comes to being genuine and something you have a passion for, it's you could fake it for a little bit. Most people see right through you. They know exactly who's being genuine and not. So I do this, Coach. What I'm doing with you, I love interviewing people, and I love hearing the stories about people, how they got to where they got to, whether they're a player or a coach, and just seeing their life path. I think it's fascinating.
I've met so many people that I've in different walks of life. And they might say, oh, yeah, I remember you or whatever. But in teaching and coaching, and you've got it now with your podcast and stuff, you get to meet so many people. But I just think I've done 41 years of just players as well, over 1,000. But the people I've had that I've taught in PE and health and science, I mean, it's unbelievable the joy they have brought to me, because if they just say, hey, Coach, how are you? Or the happy birthday, just somebody stopped in the middle of the road the other day, said, oh, I missed your birthday, sorry. But teaching and coaching is so rewarding. It has some tough times in there, when somebody dies or whatever in it, but just to see people grow up and become an adult and be responsible, how they raise their kids. I always tell people, you need to make your child's life better than you had it. It doesn't mean give it to them, but it make their life better than you had it. And they went, oh, that's pretty cool. Maybe I'll try to remember that.
I love that.
It's been great talking with you. You can see my background. I'm outside on my deck. It's a nice evening here. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you were saying how you've been at the house since 1977. I think it's so cool how you have all this history there. And I love hearing about that. So I mean, Coach, I could talk to you for hours with all this kind of stuff because I love hearing all these kind of stories.
It's really great talking to you. I've got to know you a lot better, and I know what you stand for. It's a great format. It is real life, and it's not all the razzmatazz. You know, you're interviewing people that have lived a pretty good life and got to places because they've worked hard. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Nobody got it easy. That's for sure.
No, not at all. Well, Coach,
absolutely. I'm going to get a hold of Brett right now and tell him that I told a bunch of lies, and he can tell you these stories because he knows these stories too. Because I think I've told a few of them to him, and if it ain't so, it ought to be so.
I love it. Well, Coach, thank you again, and I'm going to actually talk to my brother as well. But thanks for coming on, and it was awesome having you.
Great, thank you for getting me on, and I'm going to thank Brett for putting the bug in your ear.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be in touch. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Brad.
Right. Thanks, Coach. Take care.
Bye.